Hey, everybody. We're
Hey.
about to go live on the radio. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoy the show.
Taking any legal action related to the subject.
Get some intro music going for you.
Welcome to Aging Insight, the only show dedicated to your elder care concerns and your resource for learning about how to manage your health, housing, financial, and legal needs. This is a live call-in program featuring John Ross and Lisa Shoalmire, elder law attorneys and senior advocates for the Art Latex. Aging Insight is dedicated to helping you navigate the challenges and blessing of growing older. So call in and ask your questions. The number is 903-793-1071.
All right.
Now here are your
Here we go.
hosts, John Ross and Lisa Shoalmire.
Welcome to Aging Insight, everybody. This is your host, John Ross, here live in the studio with my faithful co-host, Lisa Shoalmire. And we were out for Thanksgiving.
Yes, we were. We enjoyed the Thanksgiving, got a 4-day weekend.
We did, but we are back.
Yes.
We're back live in the studio, and of course that means that if you have a question, you can give us a call. The phone number is 903-793-1071. That's 903-793-1071. We are, of course, also live on Facebook. So if you want to check out our Facebook Live program so you can see how the radio is being made, just go to the Ross and Shoalmire Facebook page. Give us a like, give us a thumbs up. Whatever you like to do as far as that goes.
Yeah, comments, whatever. We appreciate those. And, John, this last night, we were out and about in the Texarkana area and had a listener who stopped by to say hello.
Yeah, that's always cool.
They appreciated the show. So hey, that's encouraging to us because, gosh, John, we've been doing this show now for coming up on 6 years, I think. Something like that.
Something like that, 5 or 6 years.
And and most of the time we are here, and it is live. So I mean, every Saturday, essentially for 6 years, we trudge up here to the radio station so we can be live for our listeners out there in the Texarkana and listening area. So so we love to hear from you that you actually listen to the show and you enjoy it. So thank you so much to our listener that stopped by and gave us that encouragement.
No, it's always awesome. So, not a lot of going on as far as the last week from our standpoint. It's not like we're out giving speeches and stuff.
No, kind of take a little bit of a hiatus for the holidays.
Yeah, that's right. Not much going on over the Thanksgiving weekend. We did get to go down to Texas A&M and
we survived the 7 overtime college football game between Texas A&M and LSU.
That's right.
And that has to be the longest football game I've ever been involved in because, it was a televised game, John. So, of course, they had the TV commercial timeouts.
Oh, yeah.
And so that, of course, lengthens the game. And then just the craziness of 7 overtimes. The funny thing was lots of family came into College Station to see the game. And a lot of that family were LSU fans.
Yeah.
So we were a bit of a family divided, but it was a fun game and a really cool place to be. I think there were 100,000+ fans at the game. And, as we were leaving the game, we were thinking about it. And that, there were more people in Kyle Field than reside in the Texarkana metropolitan Texas and Arkansas area.
Yeah, no, that's certainly right. It was a big deal. Now this week we do have one little thing coming up over at our firm, Ross and Shoalmire. We are having a little thank you breakfast for clients and people who have referred us business and things like that. So if that applies to any of y'all out there, you want to come over and say hi, just come over to our office around 9 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock on Thursday, December the 6th.
Yeah, we'll have some coffee. We'll have some little breakfast snacks, and just love to have you stop in and see us and our Christmas decor.
That's right.
At the office, thanks to a Sherry Ross.
That's right.
But yeah, that would be Thursday, December 5th, 8:30, 9 o'clock. It's kind of a come and go thing. So pop in, grab a cup of coffee, chat with us, and get on your way for your business for the day. And That's at 1820 Galleria Oaks on the Texarkana, Texas side address.
Yep. So anyway, I hope to see some of y'all, some of your faces out there. You can come over and say, "Hey, I like the show,
Yeah.
and I listen." And I know you know that we listen because we're here drinking your coffee.
That's right. We showed up for the coffee and the breakfast snacks.
That's right.
Sounds good. Hey, and we like doing this kind of earlier in the day. We have found that a lot of our listeners now would just prefer to get out earlier in the day and because John, it gets so dark nowadays.
It does.
Like
it gets
5:15.
It's dark very early.
Midnight out there. So we like to have it earlier in the day, so you can come get that coffee and get fueled up and get on with the rest of your day.
That's right. Well, Lisa, you woke up this morning and the big news off of across the board was the death of the 41st President George Herbert
Bush. Yes, and I was thinking about it because I saw that news, and I think that might have been the first presidential election that I actually voted in. That I
really?
So.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah.
No Clinton?
No, that was 4 years later.
That was later. So yeah, I guess maybe it would have been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you're not old enough to have voted for Reagan.
No.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well,
yeah.
So wow. So a momentous occasion.
That's right. My awakening as a citizen to be able to go vote. The fact that they trusted an 18-year-old Lisa to vote on the the leader of the free world is frankly quite amazing. But I've been pretty consistent in exercising that right ever since. So
yeah. Not always for the successful candidate.
No, that's right. If I was always voting for the successful candidate, then I would sell my my prediction services to one of these pundits, and I would, make a lot of money. But apparently, nobody ever gets it right 100% of the time. So
yeah, well, okay.
But yeah, so he, President Bush, number 41, is that right? 41.
41.
Yeah. Had passed away this morning or last evening. The news was splashed around this morning. And I'm sure we'll be hearing lots about it, reading lots about it coming up. But, that just kind of reminded John and I that occasionally on Aging Insight Radio, we talk about celebrities or famous figures. And frankly, because, these are people that we all know of.
Right.
And so we can all kind of participate and know a little bit of something about them. And I know some people might think, why do y'all talk about these fabulously wealthy people, famous people, connected people? I mean, what does that have to do with little old me, residing in Little River County?
Right.
but frankly, it's kind of, it's interesting. I'm a geek. So I find all this stuff pretty interesting. But kind of like the People magazine, when they say celebrities are just like us, they have to wash their clothes and take showers and put their pants on one leg at a time. It's kind of the same deal. So that's why we like to kind of talk about some of these folks. But looks like we have a call this morning. So I'll see if John can operate all the technology, get that going. All right.
Welcome to Aging Insight. What can we do for you? Hey, how are you? Well,
Oh, fabulous.
well. Yeah, we do all kinds of stuff, and that's very nice of you. I really appreciate you calling.
Yeah, we
That's
can't
very
really
nice.
thank you enough. Glad to help.
Yep. Yeah. All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Well, John, I would say that's what it's all about right there. So,
Yeah. No, that's exactly right.
see if I can.
Yeah. So, and for our Facebook Live folks, I know they can't hear the callers, but it was a
Very
client,
nice.
very
compliment.
nice client calling in just to say thanks. And that really should be the goal. That's kind of what we were going to talk about today was, you can learn from these celebrities and how they plan their estates, because good planning
Avoids conflict the way the caller was talking about
Right.
that she had to endure. So
yeah, and you've really kind of got to think through it, and just like everybody else, celebrities are in fact real people. They have gotten very lucky in many cases to have become celebrities, but that doesn't mean that they cannot make mistakes just like the rest of us.
So today we were kind of looking back, with President Bush passing on and kind of some of the other personalities that have passed on this year. And we thought we might just kind of hit some highlights. A few of those we've talked a little bit about before, but let's see if we can all take a little morsel of some good information from these folks. So John, you want to?
Yeah, I say I'll tell you what, let's just take a little break and then we'll come back, and that way we can jump in and we don't have to worry about running into a commercial or anything.
Sounds good.
Stick around. We'll be right back.
Listening to Aging Insight with John Ross.
Woo, got loud there for a second. Yeah, so that was for those of y'all who couldn't hear the radio caller. We don't have the technology to connect that, at least not at this point. Maybe sometime, but not right now. But that was a caller. It was an existing client of ours who we've been trying to assist with I won't say a contentious probate case, but anytime there's a death in the family, the emotions get high. There can be suspicion, especially if there's a lack of communication. And we just this week have finally resolved all of this, all to a point that everybody is satisfied. They may not.
They're not happy. That's not the word, but they're ready to move on. They're satisfied enough, accepting, and ready to move on.
That's right. And so that was her calling just to basically say thanks. And so that was very nice of her.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
We don't have a producer. We take the calls. We do everything. So.
We don't know who's going to call
or what they might say.
That's certainly true. So who knows? But not anything that we certainly planned. So, but still very nice of her. But yeah, we were actually looking at this morning. We were trying to look up all. There's of course every year there's a laundry list of celebrities who have passed.
Yeah, but the thing is, John, and I'll probably mention this on here again, is that when you look at the list of people who have left us during the year, it seems like, gosh, it's more and more people that you know of.
Right. Yeah. Like when you were a kid.
Yeah, you didn't know any of those people. Yeah. But now it's like, really? Of course, every now and then there's one of those, I didn't even realize that person was still alive this year.
Yeah.
There's that.
There is always that one. You're like, oh wow, I thought they were dead years ago.
Right.
Well, and then of course, and as the older you get, they're either dying at the same age you are, or they're younger.
Right.
And of course, we were also Lisa was reading an article earlier on some of the things that suck about getting older, and that was one of them. Was loss. We can often live without the celebrities in many cases, but
your friends and family.
But your friends and family is a whole different whole different story.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I always think about, I'm always amazed every year there'll be a story that'll come out about celebrity Olivia de Havilland.
Mm-hmm.
And she's 100 and I don't know, something.
Right.
She was Melanie and Gone with the Wind. She's still kicking.
Still kicking.
Yeah.
All right. Going back in 5 seconds here.
Have a question? Phone 903-793-1071. Now back to Aging Insight with John and Lisa.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. This is Lisa Shoalmire. I'm here with John Ross on Aging Insight. And, this morning, John, we don't do a heavy lot of preparation for a radio show.
What are you talking about?
So
we work tirelessly for hours researching these topics.
Yes. So over a cup of coffee and with the news of President Bush, number 41, passing on, it just kind of made us think about, we're getting to the end of the year and we start looking back and see who's left us this year. And during the break, John and I were talking about how it seems like as you get older, you seem to know of more and more people on that list.
That's right.
But I don't think you really know you're just getting older and you've had more, interaction with the media and all. And so, of these people, but, we've talked about a couple celebrities that have died recently. One of my favorites, Burt Reynolds.
Yeah.
I just love Burt Reynolds.
Burton Leon Reynolds Jr.
Florida boy who just, really kind of brought the South back around through his Smokey and the Bandit movies and then a bunch of other movies that he seemed to make with all of his friends.
Right.
Jerry
right.
Reed, who was a fantastic, I could go on about that. But, Burt Reynolds, when he died recently, was it last month?
Right.
He had a estimated net worth of only about $1 million.
Yeah, it was what I would certainly consider modest.
Very modest.
Given his celebrity status.
But as John and I discussed, Burt Reynolds spent more money over his lifetime, and maybe he did it right. Maybe because he seemed to enjoy the heck out of it. The old saying of bounce, take your last breath and bounce your last check at the same time. He came pretty close for a gentleman who was rolling in the millions for a good long while.
Yeah.
But the thing about Burt Reynolds, everybody kind of laughs. They don't take him seriously as an actor. He had popularity and success with the common folks. But, John, when we look at the list and the train wrecks and estate planning we have seen this year, Burt Reynolds is a shining example of doing it
right.
Yeah, so
yeah, he nailed it.
Yeah.
At least from what we can tell, obviously. And the reason there's is what we can tell is because the vast majority of Burt Reynolds' estate is tied up in a revocable trust.
Yeah, a revocable trust. That is a private document. That's how come we can't tell a whole lot. But as opposed to other celebrities, he did get the benefit of getting older. And, our tagline when we opened the show is Aging Insight, bringing you information to navigate the challenges and blessings of growing older. Burt, gosh, he was 80.
Let's see. I've got it looked up. He was 82.
82. You're kind of hitting the actuary table at that point,
Right.
So he did have, he was wise enough to realize that he wasn't going to live forever and did some estate planning that has taken care of his son. And there's no drama that we know of. Haven't heard of any.
It certainly hasn't sounded like, in fact, by most accounts that I have read up on, everything has progressed very, very smoothly.
So, who knew that the guy that would do a movie about transporting an elephant across the country? All right. For our listeners, you'll have to think of what that was. Some goofy movie would be sharp businessman. Took care of his family.
Yeah, took care of his family. And using a revocable trust as your estate planning tool as opposed to a will, particularly in a media context, we talk about doing revocable trusts a lot for the purposes of for example, avoiding multi-state probates.
Yeah, which is pretty common in our area for
Right.
people to own land in Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma.
And a lot of times we talk about it as a way of creditor protection, for people that maybe have some assets but also have some debts that they don't want their estate to get seized by creditors.
Right.
We don't hear a lot of people that are, at least maybe not on the front end, terribly concerned about their privacy. Not in the sense like a celebrity is, right? Where they've got people following them around with cameras all day long.
Right. But that privacy issue, you may have some neighbors or some family that they're just busybodies. And
that's true.
Or maybe you're a blended family and you don't want your ex involved or knowing, things about your estate plan. Then the privacy factor and using a revocable trust, really ought to take a more of a front seat.
Yeah.
Because it is kept private. It is essentially a family document that the family deals with. Does not get filed at the courthouse. It does not. The judge doesn't have to look at it and approve it. It remains private.
That's right. Whereas in this case, the will, as soon as Burt Reynolds' will was filed, it immediately became a public record. The media was all over it. Everybody was pulling copies of it. But guess what? All it said was, "I leave everything to the Burt Reynolds Trust."
Yeah. So.
And that the trust itself now is a private document. So we really don't know much about it. Now, interestingly, if you didn't know any better, in the trust, it actually says that he disinherits his child.
In the trust or the will?
In the will.
In the will, yeah.
In the will. But the reason he's saying that is because
the child's provided for in the trust.
The child's provided for in the trust. And it actually does say that. He says he's making no provisions in the will because he's providing for him in the trust.
Yeah, so the headlines I remember was all about, Burt Reynolds disinherits his child, but he's not.
Yeah, he didn't.
Yeah.
He just didn't provide in the will. He provided in the trust. And again, that's good, well thought out planning, because that avoids some tricky issues when it comes to omitting a child.
Right.
All right, so we got to take one more break for the news. Y'all stick around. We'll be right back. Well, maybe not. All right, maybe not.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
There we go. Yeah, no, that's our lead out there to the news and the weather.
Yeah. All right. We just had the timing wrong.
Hey, we're lawyers. We're not radio people. Exactly. Although after 6 years, if we can't be taught, I don't know.
Yeah, we're pretty much doomed at this point. But going back to Burt Reynolds, he named the child in the will, then omitted the child so that he could be going into the trust. And that's so the child couldn't come back and make a claim as a pretermitted child.
Right. Which is a fancy legal term, pretermitted.
Yeah, but it does go to the point. If you leave a child out of a will without specifically mentioning them,
that child, yes.
They may get to come back in. And if that's not what you wanted, you got to avoid it. So again, good planning. Thumbs up on Burt Reynolds.
Burt Reynolds, yeah.
All right, we'll talk about some more when we come back. All right, so we're not good on the radio. I mean, who cares? Yeah. Like you said, we're lawyers. We're not radio people. Of course, Burt Reynolds made the car famous.
Yeah, the
1979 Pontiac Firebird. Is that what it is?
I think it's a 77.
It's a 77?
Yeah, because Smokey and the Bandit came out the same year that Star Wars did.
Man, you're a nerd.
Because I believe Smokey and the Bandit was the second highest grossing film in 1977.
Behind Star Wars.
Behind Star Wars, yes.
Of course.
So.
Y'all fine on the radio and internet and courtroom. I'll throw that one up on the thing. Good to appreciate that. Yeah, we got all kinds of folks just happy to say hi today.
So, but yeah, no, I figure, you know, Burt Reynolds was actually, understand he did some Shakespeare. He had the acting chops. And everybody thought he had a very intense performance in Deliverance, but he ended up making Smokey and the Bandit, and the movie itself had a certain feel to it, a certain feel good, a certain kind of lightness to it. And it was so successful that, they ended up coming back and, of course, doing the sequels, doing the Cannonball Runs, doing, what was it, Hooper. He just kind of got into a niche.
Yeah.
But, printing money, he printed paychecks.
Absolutely.
And so he never was able to really go back until, I guess, what was that movie in the 90s? Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
Where he was he nominated for an Oscar?
I think he did. I think he was nominated for an Oscar for that. So
I'm popping off the top of my head with my pop culture knowledge, so I might be a little off on some of that, but yeah, the fact that he got his legal business done properly is, when you see someone who's not a serious actor, that's not their persona. You don't expect them to be serious in their business, but fools us. So
I was actually trying to look up. I was curious to see if the '77 Pontiac Firebird
black and gold
has increased in value based on Harrison Ford's death. Like if there was a spike in Burt Reynolds' death, if there was a spike in values.
Checking out the Haggerty.
So yeah, I was checking out the values. But it looks like you could get one for about $10,000-15,000.
Yeah.
In good shape.
And in good shape, that's still a kind of a POS.
77 era, 1970s, yeah, POS. So you want one though.
Oh, I wouldn't turn it down, no. Especially in our area. I mean, our practice is based in Texarkana, and there's just a real cool factor if you had the Firebird.
No, you could leave the house every morning and you'd be eastbound and down on your way to the office.
Pretty much. So, I'm enough of a redneck populist girl to do that. But
we got about 30 seconds left before we're back on the radio.
Yeah, listener talking about some Coors bootlegging.
Yeah.
And Coors, what's the big deal?
Really? All right, here we go.
Coming back on the air.
793-1071. Now back to Aging Insight with John and Lisa.
Well, welcome back to Aging Insight, everybody. This is John Ross here live in the studio, and you're back listening to today's program where we're going to be talking about some celebrities that have died this year from an estate planning and an elder law context.
Yeah. So we talked about Burt Reynolds. Yay, did it right, and what a life, and how much money he spent. I don't want to spread any rumors, but I suspect a 70s and 80s era star. He had some ladies. He did some drugs. He survived it all.
He survived it all.
But another gentleman that died this year who, kind of came to celebrity late in life, was Mr. Stan Lee. Now, Mr. Stan Lee he passed away this year at the age of 95. So did we ever look up the word for a nonagenarian or whatever it is?
I don't think it's a nonagenarian.
All right. Well, anyway, Mr. Stan Lee, of course, was the creator of the Marvel Comics studio superheroes. And he was
Spider-Man.
Yeah, Hulk.
Hulk.
Captain America. No, Thor.
Thor. Most of the Avengers.
Yeah. So he was working for a publisher back in the 40s, 50s, whatever, and of course the Justice League, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, they were all very popular. And so the publisher that Stan Lee worked for told him, hey, why don't you come up with a stable of superheroes that we can compete with Justice League?
Right.
And so then that's how we ended up with the Marvel and the Avengers. And of course, he was successful because you can't hardly, you cannot walk into a movie theater any day and not have a Marvel superhero movie currently playing.
That's about right. I mean, that really is. That's about right.
How many reboots of Spider-Man have they done? I mean,
a lot of them.
But so Stan Lee was the creator of this. Of course, the issue was he was working for a publisher at the time. And of course, his work was the property of his employer. And so he worked for them many, many years and was paid a very modest salary. And it wasn't until later in life with the takeoff of Marvel Studios that he was able to really, frankly, make some money off his creations.
Yeah, because he wasn't getting any royalties off this deal.
Yes. So he would
had he,
right,
he would be a billionaire.
Right. So he died this year with an estimated net worth of around $50 million.
Yeah.
So John, think about it. Those properties at the movie theater are pulling in billions. That's with a B.
Yeah, big fat B.
And Stan Lee, the creator of all of it, he passed away with a paltry $50 million estate.
And that may to anybody that's listening, you may hear the number $50 million and be like,
holy moly.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not saying that that's not a tremendously large amount of money, but I have some celebrity clients who do get royalties from their creative works.
Yes.
And they'll make that in a year.
Right. And Stan Lee would have as well. Had he owned the royalties to the work. But the real key to him coming up with these characters apparently was his wife. And his wife, when he was tasked with coming up with these characters, I think he was disheartened. He was thinking about quitting his job, and it was his wife who really encouraged him. And can't recall her name at the moment, but they were married for 70 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
And she passed away about so many months before Mr. Stan Lee did. And John, frankly, that's when things went awry for Mr. Lee.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it sounds like Mr. Lee's wife. Not only was she kind of
his muse.
Yeah, his muse.
Yes.
But she was also the ref in the family.
Yeah, she was the gatekeeper.
Yeah, she kept the wolves at bay. She kept everybody polite. And when she died, man, it went bad. It went south quick.
Yeah. So if you're of interest, there was a bunch of articles prior to Mr. Lee's death about financial abuse of his inner circle, his convention tour manager. He had one child, a daughter, who apparently, John, it's hard to believe, but she had a reputation for spending a lot of money in Hollywood.
Shocking.
I know. She was called a spendthrift.
Yes.
And apparently her mother called her out on it, but when her mother passed,
Joan, according to our listener, that Joan.
Oh, perfect. Yes. So Joan was able to keep that under control, but when Joan passed, Mr. Lee was not, and of course, so daughter was going a little crazy. Daughter had a friend that jumped in to influence Mr. Lee. There were restraining orders. There were, allegations of elderly abuse and financial abuse. But yet Mr. Lee was still on Twitter, embracing his management team, saying, "Oh, they're wonderful."
Uh-huh.
I'm sure that was his perfect free will that
sure
he was making those statements. But he did pass on.
Yeah.
A few a bit ago with that $50 million estate. And I think it's still a bit of a mess.
Yeah, I think it is. And we don't know a lot about this. Again, there was some privacy stuff, but I guess the point with Stan Lee's deal here is, what a lot of people have a tendency to focus on, and it's clear that he did have some estate planning in place, much like Burt Reynolds did.
But what he didn't have in place sounds like some life planning.
Right. And that's what so many people miss out on, is they focus on the moment of death. And so they're planning based on, well, here's who's going to get this, here's who's going to get that. But they're making a gigantic assumption. And that gigantic assumption is that the individual, are going to be perfectly healthy and competent and able to intelligently manage their own affairs all the way up to
that moment of death.
That moment of death. And the fact is, that's just not the case. And it's not just some people, it's most of y'all.
Yeah, it's most of you. So when and of course the situation here, John, I've met with clients who are in this spot where there's one of the spouses that really takes care of all the business.
Mm-hmm.
And John, I've had the conversation when I talk with a client couple, and I ask about that, and the one who doesn't take care of all the business, they usually say to me, "Oh, I'm not worried about it. I'm going to die before she does."
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, you know this, do you?" And they just kind of ignore it and put it off, and they don't want to even consider the thought that that their spouse either would be deceased or incapable of continuing that role of business manager.
Yeah.
So if you're listening out there and you know that your family dynamic is that way, you and your spouse are that someone's kind of the business head, and well, then, talk, communicate, figure out what would happen. Just play the what if game.
Yeah. And don't just be very careful with your assumptions, right? So you're single, right? You're single, you're 75, you're perfectly healthy, and you've got two wonderful children. And you're saying to yourself, hey, I can manage my own stuff. And frankly, if I can't, my two wonderful children will be able to step in. And even assuming all of that is true, and you're not just wearing rose-colored glasses when you're looking at those two kids, but assuming that that's all true, I guarantee you've heard the stories of the people who get taken by a random stranger that shows up at their house.
Yeah, a caregiver.
Or a caregiver.
That's hired by those wonderful kids taking care of mom.
Yeah, another family member. That's outside of that middle bunch right there. So yeah, there's all of those sort of situations. We've got a caller calling in, but we actually have to drop for one more radio break. So
yeah, so caller, if you'll be so kind as to catch us right after we come back from this break, we would appreciate it. But so let's jump off.
All right, see you in a second. Yeah, there's kind of a fine line in there of where you need to protect yourself from yourself.
Yeah, that's so hard to think about, though, because, from the time you've been an adult to the time as you age, you've been in charge of you, and you've been in control, and you're the smartest person about you, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to contemplate not doing that.
It is difficult to contemplate. But again, if you've got that kind of core group around you, the people that you really do trust and stuff, there are some things that you can do in there to try to protect yourself from yourself. Finding the right time for that, where you can start relinquishing a little control, and frankly, trying it early on, where you have the ability to continue to make some changes. Right. So you start out by maybe relinquishing a little control, but retaining some ability to make some changes in case that's just not working out for you, and kind of having almost a progression of slowly relinquishing that control as you personally are diminishing.
Yeah, no, I actually had a client, a lady who she came in the office and she was perfectly competent, capable, but she said, I'm gonna enjoy the rest of my life and I'm gonna quit worrying about all these little things. And so my daughter's gonna take over all of my bill paying and all of that, and that's how I want it. And I'm just gonna not worry about it anymore.
Yeah.
and she had one of those good kids, and it's working fine. But she was just.
But that's she will, if she does get influenced by somebody negatively,
the daughter will have already be in place,
and the daughter will come back, and her memory of mother will be that mom anticipated this, that she was on top of it, and she's, daughter's going to have a very positive memory of her mother, where the flip side, maybe not so much. She's still going to have the trying to deal with the influencer, right, which is going to suck.
Yeah, and the influencer can influence to the point where a parent will tell a child, I don't like you, I don't love you, I don't, I hate you, why are you doing this to me? I mean, it's really a terrible situation. But as that child, you just have to hold on to what you know of that parent before the disease, the aging, and the influencer.
That's right. All right, we're going back live on the radio here in about 10 seconds for our last segment, and our caller will probably call back, and so those of y'all on Facebook Live won't hear it, but we'll try to repeat it if we can.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Have a question? Phone 903-793-1071. Now back to Aging Insight with John and Lisa.
All right, everyone, welcome back to our final segment today on Aging Insight. And today we're just kind of surveying the recent months for some celebrities and more famous people that maybe we all know of that have done some estate planning
or failed to
or made some missteps. So we were talking about Mr. Stan Lee, who did estate planning, but really failed to really plan for the idea of maybe when his wife wasn't able to be that business person and that gatekeeper that she always was, and it did deteriorate into a train wreck with courts and police and restraining orders and the LAPD involved. It was a tough situation.
And in most of the cases, the money is the root.
Yes, it is.
I mean, there's power plays and things like that, but so often it really boils down to the greed.
So, wait, let me hold that thought
please.
for a second. So some of our listeners out there are thinking, yeah, but that's Stan Lee, and yeah, okay, maybe his characters had made billions and billions, but he had a little $50 million estate. But I have somebody out there thinking, I'll be lucky if I take my last breath and have $5,000.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It just doesn't matter. We have seen greed in the most ridiculous, small, modest situations. So that's why we talk about celebrities again. Their numbers may be bigger, but the situations really aren't any different. So, all right. So we have the caller calling back in. So let's see if we can get them on the line. So caller, you're on Aging Insight. Spider-Man, yeah.
Yeah, and it all boils down to the fact that he created that as part of his employment way back in the day, and he personally retained none of the rights.
Right, and frankly, Mr. Lee's experience has been very informative to other employees of companies where there's research and development and creative, arts going on. The guys, the scientists that guys and gals who work at places like 3M or, they now have better lawyers and agents to negotiate some it's still a pretty small part if you're employed while you come up with some of these technologies or things, but there's usually some retention now. But right.
Yeah, well, and you know, I know I watched a story on Saturday Night Live, and they were talking about the actors like Adam Sandler, and you know, Adam Sandler is on Saturday Night Live, but he had all these other characters that the all the employees had learned that if they had some really good characters to hold them and not do them as part of Saturday Night Live, so that when they quit Saturday Night Live, they could go out and make movies like The Waterboy.
Right.
And because if they'd ever done The Waterboy as a character on Saturday Night Live would have owned it forever.
Yeah. So yeah, it's surprising, but cautionary tale in several ways. But you know, I would be glad to take his $50 million estate. You know, if I could come up with that, yeah. I wouldn't turn it down.
Yeah,
so
take 2% of it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So there you go with Mr. Lee and John. I guess, and I'll kind of jump back to another creative artist this year that passed away, that we did touch on in a previous show, and that was Aretha Franklin.
That's right.
And you know, she passed away with very little or no estate planning. Is that right? I mean, there was no will,
none, zero.
And she was a performer, and she had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And, you know, one of our local celebrities passed away a few years ago from that same ailment. Performer Roy Price,
right.
Country music star, lives over in Mount Pleasant. Roy, Mr. Price, did have some very paltry, that's my word for today, apparently, had some very minimal estate planning, still a big mess. Aretha Franklin died, no estate planning, and she actually has a special needs child, and you know, it takes very particular planning when you have a handicapped or disabled child that you want to provide for. And the fact that she didn't do that, especially when she frankly had the heads up of a diagnosis that sadly is almost always fatal. I mean, pancreatic cancer is almost always fatal. And she had months from the time of her diagnosis to the end of her life, and she did nothing. And so, John, what I hate about that situation, first of all, is that the disabled child, I mean, there's going to be plans for that child, but they could certainly have been done better.
Right, and better and more cost effective.
And more cost effective and in more compliance with Miss Franklin's wishes.
I'm sure.
The other thing that drives me crazy about no estate planning is, you know how much money the lawyers and accountants and agents and special appointees are going to make on this estate?
Yeah, and you know, I mean, if it's going to cousin Stewie, who cares? You know, somebody's going to get it, and you know, maybe she was just like, hey, you know, who cares? I don't care who gets it. The lawyers can get it, cousin Stewie. But you got a special needs kid.
Yeah.
Then you're taking away from that kid.
Yeah.
And the lawyers are going to take away from, and they have to. They don't work for free. They have families of their own to support. The accountants, they can't do it for free. They have families of their own to support. But that's money that didn't have to be spent, that could be there improving the quality of life of that disabled child. If you've got a disabled child, this is not the time to cut corners.
Yeah.
I mean, this is it absolutely drives both of us crazy when parents or caretakers of disabled individuals, adult disabled beneficiaries, who they cannot care for themselves. They're relying on you to do the right thing, and when you fail, that's just a sad state of affairs.
Well, and so that kind of brings me, John, to situations where we've had couples where one couple had a disability because of something like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, and the other spouse is the caregiver. And I've got a case that I'm working on right now where the caregiver's spouse got diagnosed with cancer. As far as we can tell, made no estate planning choices, did no will, no nothing, passed away.
Yep.
And now we're in court, and this is a local situation, not Aretha Franklin celebrity, but again, just like you said, the cost of dealing with this situation is it's a disservice to the survivor, when it would have been so easy and so much more cost effective to plan for in advance. And I just think that people think, oh, it's just not going to happen. I'm going to stick my head in the sand and it's not going to happen. And
you know, you talked to somebody recently and you asked them that very question. Why didn't, I mean, with a terminal diagnosis, or as close to terminal diagnosis as you can get, why didn't you do any planning? And I think the response was, well, that just made it seem like we were giving up.
Right. Yeah. So, but you know, so I don't know. I kind of, we're a little strange. We like to survey what has happened with the celebrities, and frankly, when I see some notification that some celebrity has died, that's the first thing I Google is what's the family situation like? What's the estate planning situation like?
And you know, the other notable deaths that we had this year, like the TV star Anthony Bourdain,
right,
and the fashion designer Kate Spade, both of which committed suicide with no estate plan.
Well, I would have to say you're probably not all in your right mind when you're willing to, you know, take your own life. But, you know,
but you can't make the argument of, well, we thought that was,
what never happened.
That was never going to happen.
Well, I don't know. It's a kind of a mental illness thing. But although both of them were, again, they both had different family situations, blended family situations, and certainly plenty of assets to deal with. So
yeah, ongoing business and trades, and anyway, yeah. So it's unfortunate. You can see it's not you know, just here. You know, we've talked about you know, Burt Reynolds doing it right. We didn't talk about John McCain, but he also did it right. Also died this year.
Well, he did it right because he married more money in a minute than you can make in a lifetime. As
straight up true.
As one of my
that's the most true things that's ever been said
on
Aging Insight. You can marry more money in a minute than you can earn in a lifetime. And Lisa and I both failed. All right, that's enough of that. Yeah. All right, we're going to take a break. Once again, if you would like to come by on Thursday of this week and have a little breakfast over at 1820 Galleria Oaks, come on by, say hi. We'd be happy to see you. Otherwise, we'll be back again next week. And I think next week's show we've already pre-planned is going to be.
Yeah, we've actually pre-planned.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about all the Christmas gifts for that retiree senior loved one in your life. So be sure and tune in for that one. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
And goodbye to all of y'all. Thanks for watching.